This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm your host, Craig O'Neill. Welcome to Speak Up Effective Communication. I have a guest with me, a familiar guest and friend of the show, Evan Wisner. Evan, say hello.
Hey, Craig, and everyone listening.
Hey, thanks for joining me again. Evan has a story that we're going to go into today. And folks, as we are around the Halloween holiday, we figured this would be a lot of fun to talk about telling a suspenseful or intriguing story, challenge our perspectives on this a little bit, but understand some of the method of storytelling that makes it fun, that makes it engaging, that makes it us lean in, want to listen to this. And sometimes for those of us who like to get a little scared, allow yourself that suspension of belief or embrace the scenario being described and have real suspense. Before we jump in, let's take a moment and thank our sponsors for making this all possible. With the Institute's coaching, leave a legacy that endures, foster careers, and drive community impact. Start your journey today at wearetheinstitute.com/business-assessment. AutoFlow is your partner in technology. With AutoFlow, enhance your client interactions in a single thread before, during, and after the visit. To see how AutoFlow makes it simple, visit AutoFlow.com. Are you tired of juggling multiple tools to manage your auto repair shop? Say goodbye to the chaos and hello to streamlined efficiency with AutoLeap, the #1 all-in-one auto repair shop management software. With AutoLeap, you can sell more, save precious time, and delight your customers with every interaction. Your trusted companion, ShopDog Marketing, is right by your side, attracting the best customers and building long-term growth. Call ShopDog Marketing today or visit shopdogmarketing.com. Supercharge your auto shop with Inbound, AI-powered communication analytics and phone service for your professional shops. Visit callinbound.com. We are here with Evan Wisner. Now, Evan, before we jump into this story you have for us, you and your brother both share something of a passion for telling stories, yes?
Yes, but I would honestly say my brother, when it comes to telling, especially scary stories, is way better. He's just got a gift for it.
Well, I think that's going to say a lot about your brother, because when we heard you tell a scary story the other day in our home club at Grand Rapids Toastmasters, I think everyone was really enjoying themselves hearing what you had to say. So give yourself some credit, man.
Well, thank you. I'm trying.
Okay, there's a few things that we're going to talk about that go into making a great story. I don't know how all of our listeners feel, but I'm one of those people that when I have a story to tell, I struggle sometimes to focus on things at a pace and in a way that keep people on the edge of their seats. If you're sitting around that campfire and you want to be really effective, I think Evan is the guy that's going to give you some examples here that you'll like, and I think we're going to have some fun doing this. So Evan, let's set the stage a little bit for this story that you have. Where were you when this all happened, and when was this?
So this was in northern Michigan, up just north of Cadillac. A little town called Manton is where my family had there was a campground I grew up on, and my family had a cabin on that campground. And this particular story, I spent a lot of summers there. I spent a lot of my youth there, but this particular story takes place when I was 15.
Okay, so a little bit ago in northern Michigan, beautiful part of the state where you're describing, heavily forested, for those that aren't familiar with that part of Michigan. All right. Well, Evan, let's have you dive in.
Thank you, Craig. Life is full of experiences. Some are fun and exciting. Others are serious and somber. And then there are those that are terrifying and unexplainable. Growing up, I spent a lot of time in northern Michigan, camping, hunting or fishing, and often working on maintenance and construction projects at the Manton Christian Campground, where we had a cabin, and my dad was the building and grounds chairman for the board, which meant that if there was a construction project going on at the camp, my dad and I, by default, were going to be there working. This takes place during one of those work weekends, one mid-fall day, not unlike today. When I was 15 years old, I was working with my dad up north at one of those work projects. It was end of summer, fall cleanup, getting things ready for the winter. I had spent most of the day raking and burning leaves, repairing broken steps and deck boards, simple things like that, but also installing a new fence up at the front gate of the campground. It was a long and tiring day for sure, but as anyone knows, it's easier to work with people who are fun. Like my buddy, Abram. Abram was very outgoing and athletic and funny. We worked on all the projects together, talking, joking, goofing around, having a good time. We had known each other for a few years, couple years. We had spent together up north at the camp. The camp also held youth camps, and we had spent some youth camps together. And we were the only teenage, young adult boys that were there for this work project. Abram and I were finishing up the day, installing a new fence at the front gate, digging a hole, putting a fence in, moving on to the next one, digging a hole, thrilling stuff, super engaging, very tiring, a lot of work.
Yeah, a little bit mundane even, yes.
Right, yeah, but you're just building a fence, right? Fence is the same. Around 5 o'clock or so, Abram's family came and got him for dinner. And I stayed there to help my dad finish the last few posts. I'm still working about a half hour later when I hear this absolutely roaring engine followed by tires skidding across gravel, right behind me. I turn around and there's the coolest 16-year-old car dream I have ever seen. Abram is grinning like a Cheshire cat, hopping down out of a black Wrangler Jeep, stripped down, no doors, no roof, huge mudding tires on a lifted suspension with a full roll cage, including an entire set of multi-directional KC running lights and 5-point racing harnesses in the seats. Abram was 16 and had his license and had just made the coolest entrance I had ever seen. "Hey man," Abram said, loud enough so that my dad could hear him. "Want to go two-tracking back in the state lands?" I turned to my dad, trying to play it cool, but honestly, I knew my face was like, "Oh, come on, let's go," But my face definitely gave it away. And my dad's like, "You going to help finish this tomorrow?" And he looked at both of us. Me and Abram were kind of nodding like, yeah, no, we'll help tomorrow. But we were already halfway in the Jeep by this point. And I think about that a lot to this day, that what would have happened if instead of going with Abram, if we had just stayed and finished that fence. It toys with me sometimes.
Well, this is the question then for the dilemma. What would have happened if you stayed and finished the fence?
I was already getting in the passenger seat before my dad had finished talking. He was saying something about be safe, something reckless, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of this awesome engine.
Yes, Dad will say this.
Yeah, right. Dad stuff, And so we peeled out, kicking up gravel, took off. We were off and I was stoked. This thing was meant to go wild. We drove off, strapping into our 5-point harnesses on the 15-minute drive to the state recreation area. And it was down the road. It was just one road. You take the highway, you go straight to it. And there's a little turn off and you go down in. You follow a winding road and there's a campground and lots of trails. And the campground sits up the base of a lake. The weather was perfect. Cool, in the wind, but not cold yet. It was a lot like today, sunny and breezy. The wind whipped us as we were rocking out to The Offspring and Godsmack like rebellious Christian kids. Colors flying by. It was amazing. The recreation area, as I said, had this short dirt road and went back into a small campground around a lake. So when we drove up, we were slowing down, all right, looking for campers, but it was empty. There's nobody in this campground. We're oh, awesome. So we followed around the edge of the lake and it opens up and there's just miles and miles of trails that crisscross through this state area. And we just tore into it, man. We were flying through there, whip around the corners, two-tracking, mudding, going absolutely crazy. It was a freaking blast.
Yeah. Is the truck still black? I'm guessing this Jeep was starting to look a little bit dirty at this point.
Yeah, it was dirty. It was a dry day, so it wasn't super muddy, but it was definitely getting dirty. Mudding might have been a creative take on that. More just dirty. We're skidding around trees, sliding around the curves. We're dodging everything. We're blaring rock music. We were out there for an hour. And then it was starting to get dark. And I'm like, should we go back soon? I asked Abram and he just grinned at me, reached down, flipped the switch on the dash. And those KC lights lit up the woods like Friday Night Football. It was awesome. He's like, hell no, we're going to keep going. He just took off, man. And we're just hitting every turn we possibly can. I was thrilled, ecstatic. At some point, a little bit after that, we skidded to a stop. It was getting significantly darker now. And Abram points at the gas gauge. He's like, yeah, we better head back fairly soon. There's less than a quarter tank left. We kind of figure it out like, that way's west. Take off to what we believed was west toward the highway. And we were going slower in the dark, still having fun, but we're pretty much just like, all right, we got to find our way out of here now. And that's when things started getting strange. It's like when we slowed down and we were on our way out. We were having a real hard time, like finding our path, like finding where we came in, because this thing's got giant tires. So we're assuming we're going to see like our tracks, like where we've come through the area and like crisscrossed, then we can kind of follow it back. But we're like driving back in there. We can't find anything. We haven't seen any of our tracks or any of the areas that we've already crossed. And it was more of a, where are we sort of feeling had kind of set in. Even though we're like having fun, we don't really know.
This is all before GPS and any other smartphones.
Right. But also we're like, whatever, we're 16. We know everything. We can definitely, solve this and get ourselves out of here. There's in no way are we in trouble because you're 16. We know everything. And we keep seeing things moving in the woods. And like we had to slow down a couple of times because we spooked a couple of deer. You know how it is in northern Michigan. But then like 15 minutes pass, then like 30 minutes pass. And we're still in the woods. It's full dark, but not like the normal dark, the dark of being in the woods. And anybody who's ever spent time in northern Michigan knows exactly what I'm talking about, where it feels almost heavier. The trees block out even the stars and the moon. The darkness presses in on you. It feels oppressive, almost like it has its own energy. And this was amplified by the fact that we're in this Jeep, which is basically wide open. There's like no protection. So the wind started to feel a lot colder too as the temperature dropped. And Aber and I are like turning off the music and are discussing where to go. Man, none of this looks familiar. I'm not sure where we're at. We're almost out of gas too. And it was like right then that the reality of the situation kind of sunk in. We're alone at night in the woods. The temperature is dropping. We're running out of gas. We have no idea where we are, and no one else knows where we are either. And keep in mind, like you said, this is before GPS and smartphones, which wouldn't have mattered. We still had those cool flip phones, you know what I mean? Because it was like, that was like brand new. But like we didn't have any, we had zero service, no service.
I think the service is still weak in many of those areas. Yes.
Right. We even tried, we're like, I'm trying to find a signal while we're driving around. We haven't had one before we even got into the state grant, and we didn't have any. And so like we couldn't even call anyone for help. So we're kind of like, okay, the situation is a little more intense than we originally thought it was going to be. And so we're driving around a little bit. That's when I could only describe as a shrieky laughter just like tore out from the woods. It was like crash. Like, and then I could see something like whip along the edge of the lights. Cause like he's got, all these bright lights, and something was running through the woods and like right along the edge of it. And, we're trying to play it cool, like, yeah, coyotes or something, right? Of course, yeah, sure. I'm sure that's what it was, coyotes.
Yeah, the menacing sound those things make in the woods. Anyone who's been up there and heard that, it's deeply unsettling.
Right. They're laughing it off, We definitely kept all the lights on and the radio off, paid a little bit closer attention to things now. And we drove around for who knows how long as that gas needle's just like sliding down. The temperature craters. Our breath is like visible when we speak on the gloomy, cold, wooded air. Abram stops at one point to like take a leak and shuts off the engine. And so then it was eerily quiet. No woods, critter sounds, just the sound of Abram watering a tree. And then just loud noise. Have no idea. And a shape, again, darts along in front of the vehicle, like right through the lights. And Abram apparently decided that he was done going to the bathroom, and he leapt back into the Jeep. I'm not entirely certain that he did not pee on himself. I know I did. We shot off down the road. Neither of us saying a word, kind of whatever. We got to figure this out. We got to get out of here. There's creepy noises in the woods. Let's get this done. And we're just riding slowly through the darkness. We're already amplified. We're already like, okay, things are starting to set in. I remember, though, what happened next vividly. It's burned into my mind like a branding iron. We were heading into a switchback that curved first to the left and then sharply back around the hill to the right. We couldn't see around the corner. The lights were following the curve as we came around the hills and trees. The light snapped around the corner and Abram slammed on his brakes. The Jeep just like lurched to a stop, skidding into the sand. We were both staring, transfixed, out the front of the Jeep. The bright floodlights poured down the road, illuminating everything except for a swath right down the middle. That was cast in shadow. In front of that shadow is what I can only describe as a black, dark, almost smoky mass. The first thing in my mind was that this was a bear, right? It's northern Michigan. But then it started to spin. And I realized that I could see light from the vehicle going underneath of it. It wasn't touching the ground. The sand beneath the mass was churning and sending out almost like waves of sand as if something was boring into the ground. The light hit the mass weirdly too. It's like it didn't light it up. It's very hard to describe. I realized that it was starting to turn. So like it was spinning, but also it was turning around. Has anyone ever seen the old school Looney Tunes with the Tasmanian devil who spins around? That is kind of what it looked like a terrifying and menacing dark black version of that. We watched it for what felt like an eternity, but I'm sure was only a few seconds. My heart absolutely racing, just pounding out of my chest. My mind, I was in shock. I had no idea what this thing is, what is going on. And it continued to spin. Then it seemed as if it had like fully turned, because in the center of this mass, this spinning tornado of darkness, this northern darkness, there were two dark spots which felt like eyes. They looked like eyes. Or where eyes should be. It might be a better way of describing it. And they were turned right towards us. And then it stopped. It was no longer turning. So it felt like this thing turned around and looked at us. Not a word passed between Abram and I. We looked at each other, and I'm sure that my face looked exactly like his face did, which was absolute abject terror of just, what is this? And Abram didn't even wait. Threw it in reverse, backed up around the corner. Like we were flying. We slammed into a little tree, like a tiny tree, like hit it because we like went up the hill on the curve. And like he throws it into gear and we whip back the way that we came. And he just flying like as fast as you can at night in the woods. Like he was just going. We're skidding. We're doing everything. He's staring out the front. I don't know how long we drove. It felt like a few minutes. I was staring out the back, just watching the darkness swallow the road and expecting something to come like bursting out of it at any second. All of a sudden, we miraculously shot out of a trail onto the road that leads into the campground. Like we've been driving around lost for like all of this time. And all of a sudden, bam, there it is. We're like on the road and he skidded into that road. He was driving it like he stole it. We slid into that road and he took off back towards the highway. We skidded onto the highway. We drove as fast as we possibly could back to camp. You want to know what the conversation was like?
Yeah. What did you say?
Yeah. What was, I don't know. That was pretty much the entire conversation the whole way back.
Stammering for the words. Yeah.
Of just like, what did we just experience? What did we just see? Not much real conversation. We discussed it and we're like, okay, do we tell anyone? And we agreed that we're not going to tell anyone because we figured no one is going to believe us. As we pulled in, I realized that my dad had finished the fence at the front gate. So like we weren't going to have to get up in the morning and knock out this fence. And so we're like, okay, cool. Like we could go to bed, try and sleep. I don't know if we're going to be able to and, like regroup. So we went to our separate cabins. Abrams was on the other side of the campground, and it's a fairly large campground. I went to mine and I laid down. I remember I just thought about it, like this entire thing just playing over in my head. And I once finally at some point fell into a fitful sleep, woke up. It was later in the day, right? Didn't have to get up and go build that fence. So I'm getting up, I'm getting around and I'm like, all right, well, I got to talk to Abram. Like, we got to discuss what happened. And I get over to where Abram's family is and they're gone. Like Abram's gone. His family's gone. They had already left. I never saw Abram again after that day. That was the last time I ever saw him. There's a lot of crazy, creepy, weird, terrifying things in the world. But that night in northern Michigan haunts me to this day.
Looking to take your shop to the next level of quality service, team culture, and overall profitability? At the Institute, we provide personalized coaching that aligns with your goals of financial stability, excellent customer service, and employee satisfaction. Our priority is helping you establish significant and sustainable progress. We work with you to create strategies that reduce the stress of running your business, improve your quality and performance, and optimize your profitability. Experience the benefits of professional coaching by visiting wearetheinstitute.com/business-assessment. Hey friends, as you know, I'm a proud member of the AutoFlow team, and let me tell you, we've changed how business is done for auto shops everywhere. We support your client experience before, during, and after the work is done. Imagine this: timely updates sent directly to your clients, branded digital vehicle inspections, and seamless communication from start to finish. That's why shops love AutoFlow. And hey, with those 5-star reviews rolling in, you'll wonder how you ever managed without us. Take an important next step and take your auto shop to the next level. Visit www.autoflow.com. Get on board with an AutoFlow trial. Are you ready to meet your perfect auto repair shop management software partner? Well, say farewell to the days of transactional relationships and hello to a true partnership that elevates your business. The number one all-in-one solution is AutoLeap. You're not just getting software, you're gaining a dedicated ally committed to your success. AutoLeap will help you sell more, save time, and delight your customers at every turn. From scheduling appointments to creating estimates, generating invoices, managing technicians, and seamlessly syncing with QuickBooks to keep your records updated. Experience the difference a true partnership makes. Visit AutoLeap.com and book a demo today. AutoLeap, your trusted partner for success. Want to see your auto repair shop thrive? Are you looking to drive more customers to your auto repair shop? Let ShopDog Marketing be your guide. Our customer-first approach, combined with AI-driven creative content, ensures top rankings. Dominate mobile-first and voice search with our specialized expertise. Reach out to ShopDog Marketing today and start growing your business. Don't miss out on this chance to boost your business. Visit shopdogmarketing.com. Inbound has exclusively served independent auto repair shops with expert communication solutions for years. Our robust VoIP platform ensures you stay connected while our industry-leading AI analytics take your business to the next level. We provide the tools you need to understand your customers and optimize every interaction. Choose Inbound for proven expertise and unmatched innovation. Visit callinbound.com and discover the difference we can make. Thank you, Evan. This is an intriguing story for a few reasons. One, it's fun. You told this fully aware of the fact that we're in Halloween. Yeah, exactly. Fun.
Oh, fun for you to hear. It was less fun going through it.
Yeah. So this is what we realized as we're talking to you afterwards. When you tell a story like this, everyone thinks, okay, we wrote this story for fun. But then you add the added context to this. And this is where I think that it's really interesting, because this is where fiction and nonfiction blurs, but it blurs not just for the audience listening to the story, which is a fun part of any story, but for you, it's a blurred memory, and you have no one to collaborate with. Conveniently, I'll add. Yeah, we need Abram to hear this.
Right. And as I said, I was like, maybe he'll hear this podcast, because like, all right, it's one of those things where I feel like I should give a little context as far as Abram's a real person. I knew him. We went to camp together. But after he left, as I understand it, his family like moved down south. So like they never came back to the camp. And I feel like at one point I actually like had Abram's cell phone, but like we just fell out of touch. This was like before Facebook and social media. So like it was one of those things where, you know,
a few cell phones later, you don't have the number anymore.
Right. Kind of thing. It's possible I may have like messaged him or something at some point, but I don't really remember. But as far as I know, like I didn't have any real contact with him after this entire thing happened. I don't even remember Abram's last name. That should tell you, like, part of it was like, okay, I made this up. This is in my head. Like, this is totally fake. I'm gaslighting myself. I made Abram up. You know what I mean? I'm like, did I dream this? Like, I didn't know. And then he was gone. So like, I have this crazy experience, and I now also have no one who can verify it. So like, I didn't tell anybody for like a long, long time about this experience. It wasn't until like probably 10 years later.
Well, this is part of the fun. Yeah. Well, this is one of the tips for storytelling that we have outlined here, is create a well-drawn setting. I consider this a very tense atmosphere. Up north, my daughter still to this day hates going into the woods up north. She has a larger than life fear of bears and wolves, or the things that you might find in the woods. Wolves being very uncommon in Michigan these days, but bears happen. They're black bears. It's not like the big brown bears out west or anything. It's not a very scary woods. For the people who like to go dispersal camping, very accessible environment, typically an enjoyable place to go if you want peace. But this was a little different. And I love this because your story began, and as you were first telling the story of the Toastmaster Cups, okay, cool. Camp setting, perfect, scary story world. This fits along with most of those things. And then, of course, the teenagers being the main characters in this. But this is your perspective of yourself back then. And I assume a real Jeep.
Oh, yeah. That was the thing, is like, this was cool. This is like the epitome of cool back in the day. And I was like, it wasn't really a like car. It was like an ORV, right? You know, like he had this thing to go do this stuff. Actually, if I remember, I don't think it was like his. I think it was his parents, you know, but like his parents had money and so they got in it for him kind of thing, right? Yeah.
I don't know many kids who work part-time at a camp that can afford a nice decked out Jeep.
I remember his parents had a couple of nice vehicles up there. As we're called, like, you know, they had money.
Yeah. This could sound mean, but the use of an unreliable narrator, I think we just took you and we set you aside on this a little bit. And you recognize yourself like, hey, 16, foggy memory. Who knows if I remembered this right? There's a little bit of shakiness to that, but that's one of the ingredients to this story that makes it fun.
As you and I have discussed, like when I first gave this, is that the story is as accurate as I can, but I definitely took some creative license with like, what did we say to each other? You know, it's 22 years ago. Who knows? I don't remember exactly what music we were listening to. I assumed it would have been like The Offspring or Godsmack or something.
Yeah, all classics.
We definitely heard stuff going through the woods. I felt like including it in more of a creepy way kind of like helped the story, because for all intents and purposes was just like, okay, yeah, we're a little lost, but we still kind of figured like we were going to get out of there. When we saw this thing, that was the only thing we could think of, is like, we got to leave the woods as fast as possible. The area where we went, I had been before. I had spent time out in those trails, camping, fishing. Like I had done stuff out there. Like we used to sneak girls out of the camp.
Yeah, a very popular event up there. Those ORV trails are all over the place.
We had each like dated girls from camp and like, you know, we're going to go down to the state area and like hang out in the woods, you know, be cool guys. This area wasn't like entirely unfamiliar, and it was a few years before I did, but I've gone back there. I've gone back and like tried to find it. But like trying to find a random turn in the road in the middle of like miles of trails in northern Michigan is like a needle in a haystack kind of situation anyway. I did, but I never saw anything again. I couldn't figure out where we were, or how we got there. I tried.
No, and I guess looking for the cross between Wile E. Coyote and the Tasmanian Devil, which has got to be what it was.
A Tasmanian Devil in northern Michigan, I'm sure. And like, I've thought about this for years, like what it could have actually been. I feel like I should say this right off the bat, is that like, I consider myself an incredibly open-minded person. I'm open-minded to things that we do not fully understand, that individuals and people may experience for themselves that other people may not ever experience or be able to experience, as far as the paranormal or the supernatural or just things that we haven't yet been able to figure out an explanation for. So like, I'm very open-minded, but I'm also like incredibly skeptical as a person of like everything. And so I'm like, what realistically could it have been? And have like come up with theories, come up with a lot of stuff over the course of my life. But I don't know. The answer is I have no idea. Never saw anything before or after that was anything remotely like it. I even like searched after years, you know, like, has anybody else experienced this? And I've had people who talked about having, you know, some creepy experiences in northern Michigan, even some I'd found like in that area, but nothing that was even remotely close to what I saw, like what Abram and I went through there, like nothing that I felt like, oh, you saw the same thing we did, you know? So I don't know. I have no idea.
One of the things that I'll mention is that I was watching a video. There's a former Marine that has a story about a UFO event that he believes he saw. And this is on some other podcasts out there, and you can find these interviews. Been largely debunked by the guy's own commanding officer and a variety of other things. But this conspiracy theory that goes around these UFOs is all based on this guy's testimony. And it's one guy's testimony. And the details that he's able to offer are almost flawless. And that is not typical of something that would be a traumatic memory. In your experience, is that something you would agree with?
So like without hearing exactly what the narrative is, it'd be very hard for me to give an opinion of like.
I can do the details, fine details, like what type of weapons some other soldiers there were carrying and all the fine little granular details of an entire scene in a jungle. It was really fascinating.
It's tough because sometimes trauma can sear things into your memory. You're like, yeah, I remember exactly how it smelled, how it felt, like the temperature, what was, you know, like you remember the colors of clothes and like you remember exact details. And other times your brain can actually disassociate you from a memory and add things in, fill in a narrative and tell you something that is easier for you psychologically to accept. Also, like there's any number of other things that could come into play. Like for instance, like I was talking about how we're talking about memories. And when you access a memory, you change it. So there may have been like a recollection that he had that over time, he has like, oh yeah, I remember it being like this. And like he may have added those details or those details may have been interjected. And so they feel real and like they are real to them, but like they might have been had nothing to do with it and have just come in as that memory continues to come up and has been accessed. It has changed and evolved. So like, I also feel like it's like, do you think someone's making it up? No, a lot of times I don't. When people I believe that it happened like this. I believe that this happened, but I am also willing to acknowledge that I might have dreamt it. It might have been an incredibly vivid dream. Like, right, I woke up the next day and he's gone. And I'm like, did I just dream this? And I think that this happened.
Maybe you built the fence.
And then, but like, I didn't have anyone I could go ask, I gaslit myself. And like, yeah. And so it can happen. I know people who are like, I had this dream. And then I was like, did that really happen? That is common, that people can have such vivid dreams that they believe them to be real. We also can have, you heard a story and then you were so engrossed when you were listening to it that it felt real. And like that can happen too. That happens all the time with eyewitness testimony, especially with like false confessions. Like that's how false confessions, like, I don't know, maybe that did happen. Maybe I did do that, And so like it can feel real to the individual. And so like when you're talking about though, somebody who's rehearsed and practiced telling something over and over again, it doesn't feel as authentic anyway. So we generally question the validity. Like that feels very rehearsed. That feels very practiced, but like, it's hard to know.
Sure. When it comes to the story in particular here, I think the fun thing here is that we're having fun with the story. And this is one of those pieces that you brought this to us. Your purpose isn't to necessarily gain belief or anything else. It's to have some fun. You like the Halloween holiday, and I think you tell a story well, and we can learn some elements of storytelling. And I'll say this with your descriptions, the descriptions that you provide, I think were really, really well done. And that's why when we were listening to this in Toastmasters too, even those of us members of our club, perhaps who have never done camping in the North, you felt it. You felt it. And that use of language that you used to describe the scenario in the woods it's very, very good. So I do want to say thank you for sharing the story with us. Around the Halloween holiday, we got a little bit of a taste of good storytelling. It's an element of Speak Up that I think that we're going to dive into multiple times in multiple ways. Sometimes stories that are absolute, clear nonfiction and just somebody's relevant story with a purpose. Other stories like this time of year, just for fun. But hey, if you have a fun story to tell, I do want to hear about it. And I'd love for you to go ahead and send me an email, speakup@craigoneil.net. Again, that email is speakup@craigoneil.net. Send any little stories that you might want to share or a little fun, scary thing that you went through. It could be anything this time of year. It'd be the type of thing that we'd love to be able to share with our listeners and maybe even have you talk to us a little more about. As always, please don't forget to check out all of the other shows on the Aftermarket Radio Network. We have some amazing, amazing shows. We have Carm Capriato on Remarkable Results Radio. We have Matt Fonslow with Diagnosing the Aftermarket A through Z. Wonderful technician, good friend, funny guy as well. We really enjoy him. Coach Chris Cotton, he has his weekly blitz. We have Kim and Brian Walker on the Shop Marketing podcast. And of course, Hunt Demarest on Business with the Numbers, the guy who makes numbers fun. He has some great topics on there. So if you want to know your numbers better, check that one out for sure. And of course, you're listening to Speak Up, Effective Communication. And remember, as you go out there, before you do speak up, remember to listen up too. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Speak Up, Effective Communication with Craig O'Neill on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Craig on your favorite podcast listening app and on his YouTube channel. Let him know what you'd like him to speak up about. Craig is all for advancing the automotive service aftermarket.